Alright, I want to show you how to get a bike clean in about 15 minutes. I mainly ride mountain bikes and cyclocross, so my bikes get pretty dirty. I'm also a neat freak, and like many of you watching this video, I'm also very busy. So I've learned how to get it down to about 15 minutes without disassembling the bike, really just throwing it in a work stand and using some of these other things that I'm going to show you. Okay, so this is what you're going to need. A plain old bucket, dishwashing liquid, simple green in a spray bottle, concentrated simple green, and you can find this at Walmart. So this is a gallon size. Mineral spirits in a spray bottle. You don't have to have this if you have simple green in a spray bottle. A gear brush. This is one made by Park. A bottle brush. A chain cleaner. This is a Park. I really like the Park. There are other ones out there too that you can find. A sponge. A brush. GT85, and for the chain I use ProLink. I like ProLink, and a plain towel. You're also going to need a spray nozzle, one that has a few different settings, particularly jet and a mist and the shower, and of course a hose. And if you want to get your bike really dry really quick when you're done, I really advise getting an air compressor. This is a really basic Craftsman, 125 psi, 1 horsepower, and these you can find at Sears or a hardware store for about $100, but it's a good investment. And a work stand makes it a lot easier. You don't have to have a work stand, but it does make it a lot easier. And if you're a serious cyclist, you probably already have one. The bike I'm going to be cleaning today is a Niner Jet 9 RDO, and as you can see, it's pretty dirty, and we're going to get it clean. Okay, the first thing that you're going to do is just take the concentrated simple green, fill up your chain cleaner about halfway, and it doesn't have to be diluted all or concentrated all the way, so I add a little bit of water up to the fill line of your chain cleaner. Okay, as most of these chain cleaners work, just put it on the chain and spin the cranks backwards. About 30 revolutions is what I do. So now I'm going to leave the simple green on the chain and let that soak in, and while it's doing that, I'm going to spray down the chain ring with the simple green in the spray bottle. Put some on my gear brush. Now this is really crucial for a bike, getting the drivetrain clean. Even if you don't ride in really muddy conditions, I would say probably about every dozen rides you really need to clean your drivetrain, because this is what's going to wear the fastest if you don't. You can leave some dirt sitting on your frame, but if you leave it sitting on your drivetrain for a long time, it's going to cause wear prematurely. I'm going to go to the other side. Actually, I'm going to shift the front derailleur so I can get the back side. You can kind of shift the derailleur around to get the small chain ring and the large chain ring, and of course the middle if you have a triple. Okay, now I'm going to take the simple green and I'm going to spray down the cassette. Use the gear brush and do the same thing. You want to shift the rear derailleur so you can get to all the gears. I would also advise wearing kind of an old raincoat, because the drivetrain is going to be the nastiest part, and you can get pretty dirty, as you can see. If you don't have, I use an old cycling rain jacket that's no longer good for riding, but I use it for cleaning the bike usually. Okay, now I'm going to spray down the chain with the jet mode on the nozzle, and I'm going to spray down the cassette and also get the chain rings. And always do the drivetrain first, because when you do this, it's going to spray some of that gunk around, and you want to be able to clean that off your frame. when it's time to clean the frame. See, that was the jet mode. I'm going to use, this has an angle mode that I like for the chain rings. Make sure when you're doing this that you don't spray inside the bottom bracket, because if you jet inside there you can get some water in the bearings, and that's what you don't want to do. You get the back side of the chain ring. See, that's it for the drivetrain. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take the hose and put it on the shower mode, and before I start using soap, I'm just going to wash off the dirt that's on there. So just taking the shower mode and kind of getting all that dirt that's sitting on there. And this probably gets your bike probably about 50% clean. And we'll use the brushes to finish it up. I spin the tires, kind of get the tires clean. I'm going to come around to the other side. Let's get the other side. Okay, now I said I don't take the tires off the bike, and that's two reasons I do that. One is just the time, but also it's easier to keep the tires on the bike because you can spin them and get them clean and use a brush like I'm going to show you in a second. Okay, now I'm just going to take about, I don't know, maybe a teaspoon of dishwashing liquid. Fill up the bucket probably about a quarter of the way. Nice and sudsy. Okay, now I'm just going to take the sponge, dip it in the bucket, and go over things like the frame, the suspension fork, or not suspension fork if you're doing a road bike or rigid. And I'm just going to go over the whole frame, the cranks, a few other things, and then in a minute I'll show you what I do with the bottle brush to kind of get into some places that are hard to reach with the sponge. Okay, now you want to take your bottle brush, just dip in the bucket and get those hard to reach places, like in your suspension linkages. I also use it to get the hubs. You can just put it in inside the spokes and get the hubs clean as you spin the wheel around a little bit. Okay, now you want to take this brush and get your derailleurs. And you also want to get the wheels clean. And you do this just by going around the rims as you spin the wheel. And I'll do the same thing on the front too. Okay, use the same brush on the pedals, both sides. And I'll go ahead and get the front derailleur rum up here. And I can also use that brush on the front and rear brake caliper. And you can go ahead and get the disc clean as well, if you're cleaning a mountain bike with disc brakes. Okay, now we just washed the soap off, and I'm going to use the shower mode. And again, when you're doing this, make sure you don't jet inside the headset, the bottom bracket, and the hubs, because you do not want to get water in the bearings. You can spin the wheels, and as they're spinning, just get those, get the soap washed off those as well. Now what I do also is I'll take maybe a stronger setting. I'm going to use this angle setting on this nozzle and kind of get in the derailleurs. Okay, now it's time to dry it off, and I'm going to start with the air compressor, and I have a nozzle like this that just jets air out. And the first thing I do is I get the chain and the cassette. I target the chain, then when I'm done with that, I just kind of move it around over the cassette and get the cassette dry. Okay, now I'll do the rear derailleur, front derailleur, and then I'm going to go around the rest of the bike and just kind of take about 30 seconds, jet it off, especially places where water can accumulate, like inside bolts, around your stem, and like on a water bottle holder. You want to just get the water out so water doesn't sit in there and cause rust. Okay, after you use the compressor, just take your towel and towel off pretty much the whole bike, because the compressor is just going to get the hard to reach places. Really drying it off, you use the towel. Okay, the last thing that I do before I put the lube on it is I just take a flat blade screwdriver and I get in here on the rear derailleur pulleys and just get off all this junk that accumulates, all the grease and all the dirt that really builds up on your rear derailleur pulleys. And I actually put a trash can underneath, because this stuff, if you walk on it and walk in the house, your wife's not going to be happy. Okay, now it's time to lube, and I just take my Pro Link. Some people I've heard actually will drip a drop of lube on every single link in your chain. I just hold it upside down, spin the cranks backwards, and let the lube go on the chain. I get the top of the chain, and then I'll come down here and I'll get the bottom of the chain too. So you're getting both sides of the chain. Okay, the last thing I do is I take a spray lube, something like GT85, and I'll get the pedals, and I'll get the pivots in the front derailleur and in the rear derailleur. Okay, also when you do the rear derailleur, you want to get it in the pulley wheels, kind of where the bearings are for the pulley wheels. Okay, so there we go. That was about 15 minutes. It'll probably take you a little bit longer when you first do it, but once you get it down to a system, and you can see cassette's clean, chain's clean, frame is clean, everything lubed, ready to roll. And again, I would recommend doing this process, you know, obviously when your bike gets real muddy, but also probably, you know, every dozen rides or so to keep your bike running smooth and running clean and lasting a long time.